Are you ready for this one? The Department of Justice just filed a statement of interest on the NAR versus Burnett case. It just happened today, November 24th. And first of all, thank you for Anthony Lamacchia. He sent this to me. He made me aware of it. So thanks, bro. Appreciate you. Let's get into this really quick because it's only 7 pages. And out of those, I think there's only like 5 that have the whole piece, or even 4. I'm going to share with you the actual statement of interest. And also I made a little Google Doc if you need it. It's going to be in the comments in the description below. Now, I just read this, and I read this 2 times really fast. I'm not an attorney. I went to law school, didn't finish. I read this. So look, read this, take a look at this. I have some highlights of my own. I'm going to share with you some things that I think are important. Really, 2 things that I want you to pay attention to. Number 1, and we'll go over this. Number 1, they want to make sure that when the court files this on Wednesday, November 26th, they want to make sure that they're not closing the door for the government to come in and say to NAR, hey, you're violating antitrust laws. That's number 1. They may go after them for that. Number 2, they're saying, hey, this whole thing with making or forcing all buyers to sign a buyer-broker agreement, that's ridiculous. It's actually harmful to buyers because they may be stuck with brokers or agents that they don't want to work with. So let's get right into this. I'm going to show you what we've got. Here it is. So you see, let me see if I can zoom in a little bit to show you when it was filed. Filed 11/24/24. There you go. Now, from the very beginning, it's just stating what it is, but you see these 2 sentences right here. Let me see if I can zoom in for you right there. All right. It says, given that the United States takes no position on whether the proposed settlement satisfies Rule 23E, which is the one that stood out here, apart from one concern. Here's their main concern. The proposed settlement includes a provision requiring buyers and their brokers to enter written agreement before the buyer tours any home. And that's a problem, right? I mean, we all knew that from the very beginning. And by the way, John Riley, Saul Klein, who run the update with me on YouTube and podcast, we're all saying the Department of Justice has to step in because it's real estate. It's a big piece of our economy. Now, check out the second piece to this. It says the parties could, just to fix it, this is what we suggest, eliminate the provision. That's honestly the best one. Can we just get rid of that crap? Number 2, disclaim that the settlement creates any immunity or defense under the antitrust laws. Alternatively, the court could clarify that the approval of the settlement affords no immunity or defense for the buyer agreement provision. What does this mean? It's saying, hey, listen, if you don't get rid of it, just leave it open for us to come in and do a lawsuit, probably, because we don't think it's fair. So, I mean, what does this even mean? It's probably going to be something that isn't enforced, right? That's how I see it. Again, I'm just reading this for the first time. Here's the second page. A lot of just setting up for what was already gone down, saying, hey, look, this could be an antitrust violation overall. And then my favorite part here towards the end, again, it's not a very long document. In addition, the new provision that requires buyers and brokers to make written agreements before home tours may harm buyers and limit how brokers compete for clients. It bears a close resemblance to prior restrictions among competitors that courts have found to violate the antitrust laws in other proceedings and could limit rather than enhance. I mean, we were already seeing it, right? Steering competition for buyers among buyer brokers. And then towards the end, you see just who was part of this whole thing. And then what was the other piece to the end? Yes, they're going to be present. The Department of Justice is going to be present when this is all filed November 26th, right? When the court approves the settlement, or maybe decides, now that the Department of Justice stepped in, decides to say, hey, you know what? Everything looks good. Just that thing that the Department of Justice said about the buyer-broker agreement being enforced or having to be enforced, that part, maybe not so much. So let's see what happens over the next few days. Let me just share with you my notes here. If you need them, I'm also putting them into the chat. This isn't a very long one. And here it is. I got a page and a half. This is what I got from it. Just main things. If you see right here, my main concern, or the main concern that I saw, the settlements requirement that buyers and brokers enter a written agreement before the buyer tours any home is problematic. Yeah, right? And then possible solutions, which went over. I love this one. Eliminate the buyer's agreement provision entirely. Yes, that's the answer, right? And then the other thing that I said, two things, right? The Department of Justice notes that while they aren't taking any position on whether the overall settlement satisfies legal requirements, they want to ensure the settlement doesn't prevent them from what? Here's what they don't want to be prevented from. Let me zoom in. Taking further enforcement actions, seeking greater relief for the conduct involved, scrutinizing potentially anti-competitive practices in the real estate industry. Why? Because they're after a bigger picture, and they're probably going to step in again if this thing isn't fixed soon. Anyway, that's all I got for you today. I'll probably have more as I read this again a second time, and then I talk to Saul Klein, John Riley, Anthony Lamacchia, and everyone else in the industry. Let me know what you think about this. I'm not surprised that they stepped in. I'm not surprised. Very excited to see what happens. Obviously, please subscribe if you haven't already. I try to bring you the latest news and also things that actually benefit your business. Have an awesome day.